earned the name Killer Q when I was 15 years old. I put that name and that man on a shelf. If you raise my pregnant wife's blood pressure, I'm going to show you how I got the name. I'm going to make sure your mother don't have a body to bury. This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Poetic Justice, Part 5. When we left off, we got a glimpse into True's unimaginable pain. And we got a glimpse into how she remained in the know about the details surrounding the operation in Dallas. Bigwood had no clue that True was no longer in Denver, but he knew that she could see everything that went on in his house, and he was not going to allow that to deter him from carrying out his plans as planned. True had committed not to interfere in that plan, but it was clear that she had plans of her own. And at the round table, when Stephanie was running down all that transpired the day that Bigwood was shot and Amira had gone missing, she made no mention of True being in town. 2 weeks earlier, when Stax picked Renni up from Uncle Art's airstrip in pilot school, she said, "You know I love a good trip, and I always love to be in your company. But I am confused as hell. When you left New York, you said you had to put in work, and I could not come. And when I reminded you that I was supposed to come to Dallas so that I could be here for Donovan's sermon, you said I was going to have to miss it. Then you had Stephanie call me and arrange for me to fly here. Told me to bring all my tools of the trade with zero explanation. Now, I don't mind being Bonnie to your Clyde, but last time I checked, I work for the Queen Mother, and I'm not supposed to be traveling anywhere without her knowledge. What exactly is going on here?" Stack said, "I do not want to get on the Queen Bee's bad side, so you are going to make Donovan's sermon. If you missed it, there'd be questions, seeing as how you were on the manifest of the flight that I took to Dallas." Renni said, "What?" Stack said, "Don't worry. It all makes sense after a while." Stax took Renni back to the safe house that everybody already thought she was staying at. She got dressed and all dolled up for church. They attended the service and stayed for the meal afterwards. And later on, when Stax and Renni pulled up outside of the Roach Motel where True was staying, Renni said, "Oh, hell no. It ain't gotta be the Four Seasons, but it ain't no damn way you expect me to stay here." Stack said, "Listen, major hotels have major surveillance systems. I need you working behind the scenes. You can't get caught on nobody's videos. When this operation is over and all of the facts and evidence is analyzed, there can't be any trace of you having been involved. Those of us who know can't afford for anybody else to know. Do you trust me?" Renni said, "I'm learning to, but I trust my girl Steph without reservation. And if she's in on this, then I'm cool. But how long I need to stay at this flea-bitten Roach Hotel?" Stax said, "Just one night, and you won't be alone." When Stax walked Renni inside the hotel room, she screamed, "Oh my God! My nigga, if you don't get no bigger!" And True said, "Girl, be quiet. I missed you too. Now let's work." At the round table, Alejandro asked, "There's still no sign of Amira?" Stephanie said, "None." Alejandro asked, "How was it even possible that she disappeared without a trace in the middle of a shootout with soldiers in place for miles?" Stephanie said, "What we know for sure is that Amira got away on foot. She had in her possession both the phone that someone provided the phlebotomist, that person's identity is still unknown, and the phone that Wise provided her on her person when she arrived at the restaurant that Bigwood took her to that same morning. She used the phone that Wise gave her to call the covert operative that Salima had connected her with. He provided the operative her location and requested a ride. According to the operative, she picked Amira up from the alley behind the restaurant, and the phone that Wise provided her was located in that alley. Manny said, "So she still had the Charles phone with her. Is it possible that they followed her?" Stephanie said, "Yes." Manny said, "And how'd you all get it?" Stephanie said, "In the car, she pulled the phone out and attempted to make a phone call. The operative snatched the phone out of her hand." 2 weeks earlier, when Star picked Amira up from that restaurant, Amira had no idea who to trust. She had no way to know that Star was actually working for the family, or that she was a member of the St. James family. All she knew was that Star was the interior decorator, hired by Salima, who she'd befriended and manipulated into letting her use her cell phone to call Amir's co-conspirator. What she did know was Wood, Wise, and Salima were not answering their phones. And in her mind, that meant that they'd flipped on her. If nothing else, they left her out to dry, and they left her a sitting duck. As a result, she was on her own. When she called Star, she didn't know that Star was not from Texas. She'd assumed that Star lived there, knew the lay of the land, and could get her someplace safe. So she said, "You gotta get me someplace safe. Do you know any way I can go?" And Star said, "I think I know a place." And Amira said, "I need to call my best friend. If anything happens to me, she needs to look for me. If I don't make it out of this thing alive, everybody going to damn jail." Star said, well, let's get you someplace safe, and you can call whoever you want when we get there. Amira said, hell no, I'm calling her right now. Then she pulled the cell phone out of her purse, and Star said, is that the phone that your brother gave you, the one that you said might be bugged? Amira said, no, this is the phone that the people who are behind all of this gave me. That nurse lady at the lab slipped it to me. Star said, well, what did the people who gave you that phone tell you? Amira said, they told me to keep it with me at all times and keep it turned on. Star said, oh, hell no. That sounds like they're tracking that phone too. You're not about to ride in my car with that phone. And you damn sure not about to call nobody on it. Are you crazy? You look better using the phone your brother gave you. Amira said, I broke that phone into as many pieces as I could and ditched it as soon as I called you. Star said, I'm pulling over. We getting rid of that damn phone. Then Star pulled the car over, snatched the phone out of Amira's hand, got out, ran into the woods, dropped the phone, and sent Salima a quick text that said, phone here, and dropped a pin. She ran, jumped back in the car, and handed Amira her phone and said, call whoever you need to call on my phone. She pulled back into traffic and headed out of Dallas. And then she listened as Amira called her one and only friend in the world, Hanifa. What Amira didn't know is that Q was listening to the conversation too, and he'd heard every word that was said from the time Hanifa answered the phone saying, salams. Amira said, salams, girl, it's me, Amira. Hanifa said, Amira, oh my God, where have you been? Girl, some niggas done ran up in your mother's apartment, ransacked the joint, and I heard on the block that it was a shootout at the laundromat, the one that your mother be going to. Nigga said she went in and never came out. Amira said, girl, it's a long story and I don't have time to explain. I need you to do me a favor. Wise flew me and my mother out to Texas, where him and his wife live now. And the same ish that hit the fan there has hit the fan here. I need your help. I need you to write Wise's phone number down. If you don't hear from me, I need you to get here. Then she gave Hanifa Wise's phone number and said, have you been by Marvin's apartment looking for me? When Hanifa said no, Amira said, good. Go by there and tell him that you've been looking for me and you can't find me. He gonna tell you that he don't know where I am and he ain't heard from me and he don't even care. But ask him to use his bathroom. Hanifa said, for what? Amira said, because when you get inside, you're going to go behind that toilet. There's a loose towel in the wall. Pry it loose, stick your hand in there. Hanifa said, and get bit by a damn New York City rat? I don't think so. Amira said, girl, you're not going to get bit by no damn rat. Focus. You're going to pull out all the money I've been stashing there. Get the money. And if you don't hear from me, get to Dallas. Don't call Wise until you get here. And if anything don't seem right, when you talk to him, if he can't point you to where I am, if he doesn't connect you with my mother, you call the damn police. At the round table, Stephanie said, Lorenzo sent one of his tech guys to the location where the operative dropped that pin. He collected the phone and transported it to a safe house in a Faraday bag. Faraday bags use conductive material to block electromagnetic fields, including cellular signals, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, and RFID. Alejandro said, then whoever in the Charles family was responsible for tracking that phone lost her trail. Stephanie said, we believe so. The covert operative said that there was nobody tailing them. Meanie said, and you didn't have anybody trailing the operative? Stephanie said, no. At that point, we were pretty sure that we were dealing with the Charles family. And if we could make out their tails, they could make out ours. The operative was leaving an area where there was an active gunfight. She needed to look like Joe Blow citizen, trying to get out of Dodge. And as far as we know, it worked, because they made it nearly 2 hours outside of Dallas. Manny asked, are we putting all the cards on the table here? And everybody looked at Angela. Angela said, there's some things that I need to keep close to the vest, at least until all of Stanley's cards are on the table. Manny said, understood. Then Angela said, if what you want to know is who all knew where the operative was taking Amira, the answer is everyone involved in the operation, and that includes Stacks. Alejandro said, True's general? Angela said, yes. Alejandro said, then how do we know that he hasn't been in communication with True, and he didn't tell her where to find Amira? Angela said, we don't, because I didn't ask. What we do know is there are no vehicles and no people caught on video at the house that the operative took Amira to. It's clear that someone interfered with the surveillance system. We know that everything on that video was accurate from the time that the operative and Amira pulled into the driveway. And as they entered the house, it was clear that there was a man inside waiting for them. Salima called the operative to warn her, but it was too late. As soon as they entered the house, he grabbed Amira and pointed a gun at the operative. Alejandro said, so Salima was on the phone with them when they walked into the house? What did she say? What did she tell the operative to do? Can we see the video? Angela said, Stephanie, cue it up. Then Stephanie said, Salima told her to let her go. Then She queued up the video. On the screen was Amira walking into the Queen Mother's family estate out in the woods, a few hours outside of Dallas. Stephanie said, to protect the identity of our covert operative, we've blurred her face. If her identity becomes a point of contention, you'll need to ask Salima. Catherine, who'd been watching and listening to everything, knew from the woman's body language who the covert operative was, but she wasn't saying. And since no one protested, Stephanie let the video play. Everyone watched as Star walked Amira inside the house, and on the split screen, they could see a man waiting behind the door. They saw when the door came open and Star touched the Bluetooth in her ear. And they could hear when the masked man grabbed Amira around the throat, cutting her off mid-scream, while simultaneously pulling a 9mm from his hip and pointing it at Star's head. The man didn't say a word, but they heard Star say, okay, while holding her hands up in the air and letting the man walk Amira out of the door. He walked her down the stairs to the side of the house, and then the video went out. Stephanie said, and whomever was interfering with the surveillance cameras did their thing again, because we don't know where he walked her to or how he got her off the property 2 weeks earlier. When Star answered the phone, she said, hello? Salima said, there's a man in the house. He's there to take Amira. Let him. Look scared out of your damn mind and put your hands up so that he knows that you're not going to give him no trouble. And Star said, okay, and did as she was told. When the masked man walked Amira out of the door, Star said, well, what do you want me to do now? Salima said, come in. Star chuckled, shook her head, and walked back out to the car and made the 2-hour drive back to Dallas. When she arrived at the safe house where the team responsible for planning the operation had convened, I said, what are you doing here and where's Amira? Star said, ask your wife. Salima said, I was watching the cameras at the house and everything was fine. And then it wasn't. My only responsibility in this whole plan was to make sure that Star was good. I did that. I said, so what happened? Salima said, apparently I was watching the video on a loop, because when it cut to the live stream, everything looked normal. I saw when Star pulled up, and when I panned the cameras, I saw a man in the house. Nobody but us knew where Star was taking Amira, so I called Star and told her to let him take her. I dispatched the team, but I knew it would be hours before they'd get there. My only concern was getting Star out of this safe, and I knew that her best bet was to react like a civilian, and clearly it worked. Job done. I said, and you have no idea who that man was. Salima said, no, he was masked. I said, and you have no idea who sent him there. Salima said, no, I told you. I don't know what's going on. What Salima didn't say was that Stephanie had told her that there was another plan in play. A plan to get retribution for True. Stephanie said that she couldn't tell Salima who was doing what, how, when, or why. But she needed to make sure that Amira got to that house. And then she needed to let whatever happened from there happen. Stephanie didn't even know what the plan was, who was going to execute it, or how. And she certainly never told Salima that True was in town. I said, so she could be in the hands of anybody. The Charleses, the trafficking organization. Salima said, no, she probably isn't in the hands of either of them. Because Lorenzo has the phone that they were using to track her. I said, and we got the phone that I was using to track her. And Q said, and we got bigger fish to fry. Because Amira made a phone call using Star's phone. I said, well, who the hell did she call? Q said, Hanifa. And Wise took a second too long to put on his poker face. Salima said, and who in the hell is Hanifa? Wise said, Amira's best friend, my ex-girlfriend. Then Q regurgitated the phone call. Salima said, let me tell you something. If that heifer shows up in Dallas, it's going to cost her. And the price is going to include a behind whooping with tax. And the way these tariffs are set up, she's not going to be able to afford it. Meanwhile, at a safe house halfway between the Queen Mother's family cabin and Dallas, True is in the gym wreaking havoc. She's throwing furniture, weights, punching holes in walls, screaming, hollering, and crying. She doesn't know if she's coming or going. The idea that she just left Big Wood in the field with 3 holes in his body is not sitting well with her. When Stacks left Renni at the motel with True, he headed to the meetup spot where the team in charge of Operation Last Touch were convening to finalize the plans for the following day's operation. While he was gone, True had brought Renni up to speed. She said, so, I'm doing this no matter what. And while I don't give a damn how anybody feels, I'd rather Mrs. Ali, Wise, and Wood go the rest of their lives never knowing that I was behind this. No matter what, you cannot tell Salima anything. I don't want her to have to lie to her husband. And can't nobody tell nothing they don't know. Renni said, I feel you. And you know I got your back. I'll do whatever you need. Early Monday morning, Stacks slipped out of the safe house, headed over to the motel, and picked up True and Renni. Then he had them drop him back off at the safe house and head to the safe house that was about an hour outside of Dallas. The plan was for them to wait there for Amira's arrival. But true to form, True refused to do so, not without a way to monitor the goings-on when the operation went down. So Stacks provided her a Go phone, one of the phones that the team used like a walkie-talkie. Connected to an earpiece, they could send messages out and receive messages, even while smack dab in the middle of putting in work. And when True heard that Big Wood and his team had reversed course and were heading right into the mayhem, she was one way behind her man. She jumped in Stax's car and hit the highway pushing 100 plus on the dash. She traveled the nearly 45-minute distance in less than half that time. And knowing how her man gave it up, it wasn't difficult at all for her to figure out precisely where he'd be. As she expected, he had an SUV backed into an alley with all the doors open and he was taking them out. And as she was trained to do, she immediately looked for snipers. Unfortunately, though, she spotted them too late. When the first one got a shot off that hit Big Wood in the back, she took him out. And before she could get a beat on the second one, he'd let off 2 shots. Leaving her position of cover, she pulled her ski mask down, ran behind the line of men who she easily recognized as Baptiste and Lopez soldiers, helped them take out 15, 20 of the enemy to make it clear to them that she was on their team, while simultaneously avoiding taking fire herself and getting to her man. As soon as True got to Big Wood, she immediately went into action. She took her go bag off and went into her first aid kit by saying, "Don't leave us. We need you." True applied a tourniquet to the top of Big Wood's thigh and another one above his shoulder. Seeing a pool of blood leaking from the back of him, she knew she had to roll him over. But the dead weight of a 6'5", 250, 270 man was too much for True. So she used the Bluetooth to let Stacks know exactly where she was. And without hesitation, he was there to back her up. They rolled Big Wood over, unstrapped the side of his bulletproof vest, and there it was. A bullet had gone through the back of his vest between his shoulder blades. True cut Big Wood's shirt up the side, applied a wound dressing, rolled Big Wood back over, and looked for an exit wound. Finding none, she said, "I'm gonna have to relieve the pressure in his chest, and you're gonna have to get him out of here." Stacks looked for Big Wood's phone, while True found the pleural space between his ribs, made an incision right there in the alley, using the medical shears that she used to cut his shirt, unpackaged an oversized straw and stabbed it into the hole she made. And just like that, blood came squirting out, and Big Wood took a huge breath. Stacks made the phone call to the general who was in charge, dropped the phone and grabbed True, saying, "We gotta get out of here." Seeing that Big Wood was breathing on his own and knowing that general was going to have a clear path to get to him, True jumped up with her long-range rifle and started picking off the enemy one by one. As the general approached, Stacks had to drag True away. He got her back to the safe house, and that's where we were. True was raging, and Stacks is staying out of the way and trying to calm her down at the same time. He said, "Come on, boss. You did everything that you could. Word on the wires, he's alive. He made it to the hospital. He's in surgery." True said he shouldn't have even been there. "I know good and damn well he better not be fighting for his life because he went back to try and save her." Stack said, "She might be carrying his baby, True." True said, "I don't give a damn whose baby she's carrying. How many times do I have to say that?" Stack said, "I know, but he does." True said, "Well, if he dies, so does she. And she'll be taking that spawn with her." Stack said, "What do you want to do?" True said, "Keep her on ice and get me into that damn hospital." At the round table, Stephanie said the operative verified that she didn't see any vehicles, no tracks, nothing that would indicate that anybody else was there or had even been there. And when she left, the masked man and Amira were gone without a trace. At that moment, LJ returned to the room. He'd left out right when Salima passed the baton to Stephanie. He leaned over and whispered in Angela's ear, and Angela leaned over and whispered in Q's. She said, "Waz needs a lawyer." Then she looked at the Queen Mother and said, "It looks like that Hanifa situation just went from bad to worse." The Queen Mother looked at LJ and asked, "Is Salima good?" LJ said, "She is, but Hanifa is not." The Queen Mother said, "If you all need to step out to handle this situation, make it quick." Angela said to the Queen Mother, "How about this? How about we call a break and you have that conversation with Manny that you should have had already?" Stanley said, "Can I talk to you?" Angela said, "Shut up." Then she looked at 8 of the remaining 10 guards who'd come in with her and said, "4 of you escort him to a quiet place. And if he gives you any trouble, shoot him. Just don't kill him." As 4 of the men escorted Stanley out, Idris said, "Search him again." When his right hand had revealed that the orders on Wise's family had come from Stanley, several of the men who'd come in with Angela had disarmed his right hand. And to add insult to injury, Angela had frisked Stanley. She'd removed a piece from his hip and a blade from his inside jacket pocket. But when Stanley went to stand up, he came up with a .25 that he pulled from his ankle, aimed it at Angela, and before he could get one off, LJ, who was already heading to the door, had grabbed his gun hand with one hand and his neck with the other. And Q, who was right behind LJ, snatched a piece out of his hand and hit him in the head with it. If not for LJ's hand around the back of his neck, Stanley would have collapsed. Q slapped him back conscious and said, "Tell me something. Who was you planning to shoot with that pistol? My mother or my wife?" "I know you wasn't gonna shoot me. You too pussy for that." When Stanley didn't respond, Q said, "Every person in this room is vying for the opportunity to kill you. And I was gonna make it my business to be the one to do it. The fact that you haven't learned your lesson after all of this means that I'm gonna have to let Big Ange do it. What better person to end the life of a man who doesn't respect women anyway?" Then LJ swept Stanley's legs out from under him, and when he hit the floor, Angela said, "Get him out of here." And the Queen Mother said, "Clear the room. Everybody needs to leave, except for Idra, Manny, and Angela." And before the 4 guards picked Stanley up off the floor, Q leaned over him and said, "I earned the name Killer Q when I was 15 years old. I put that name and that man on a shelf. When you come back to this room, you better be prepared to be on your best behavior. Because if you raise my pregnant wife's blood pressure, I'm going to show you how I got the name. I'm going to make sure your mother don't have a body to bury."
Everybody know I don't play about you.